Committee will come to order. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the fabulous Rules Committee for our hearing today. We had thought you both would be here, and I want to thank you for taking time with us today. Today, the Rules Committee will consider the conference report accompanying S-2943, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2017. The National Defense Authorization Act is the yearly process through which Congress directs the operation and policies of the United States Armed Forces, and it is absolutely critical to our national security and force posture. This legislation provides all branches of the military with the resources and supplies necessary to fulfill their many responsibilities. It is my personal and strong belief that every American benefits from an appropriately funded and well-run military who is prepared and ready not only to defend our national interest at home but also abroad. I'd like to thank Chairman Mac Thornberry from Clarendon, Texas, for his hard work, who's been very open about not only hearing from me, but other members about their ideas about how to help our military and the men and women who represent the United States of America and who wear our proud flag. And also the ranking member, Mr. Smith, who gets to hear from me on a regular basis, normally in the morning. Adam, it's good to see you, and thank you very much. Welcome back to the Rules Committee for consideration of the conference report. I greatly appreciate not only your service to the nation, but also the way in which you conduct your business with each other and of the committee. I think it's of the highest professional nature and in the best interest of our military. I'm delighted that you're both here. For sure, as you know, if you have anything in writing, we would like to add that to the record, but I know you've made yourself available, and I know you've done a lot of work. So before we come to you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to defer to the ranking member, the gentlewoman from New York, Mrs. Slaughter, for any opening statement she'd like to make. Gentlewoman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't really have an opening statement, except that I think this is one of the most difficult bills to put together, and I respect all the great work that you've done on it. I think I'm happiest, Mr. Chairman, about the things that are no longer in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, you had told us you'd come back, and you've delivered a huge package. But I think every word has been read, and a conference report produced, I think, a good outcome. We'll wait for your report. The gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and ranking member and members. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the conference report that is before you. And let me say I particularly appreciate the opportunity and the working relationship that the ranking member and I have on this committee. And not only in committee, but in conference deliberations and throughout the year, I concur that the key focus, I think, for all members of our committee, and especially the two of us, is what's the best thing for the United States military and the national security for the country. That's our guiding light. On that note, Mr. Chairman, I might just mention that today I am wearing my Action This Day pin on my lapel because this is Winston Churchill's birthday. And there was a sense of urgency for him because, especially in national security, time wasted can never be regained. We live in a dangerous world. I think there's a sense of urgency about passing this conference report. Some people say, oh, it's okay, move it off into next year or sometime. I think there's a sense of urgency for us doing it this week, and I hope that will meet with your favorable consideration. I might just report, Mr. Chairman, there were 866 provisions in the House-passed bill. There were 757 provisions in the Senate-passed bill. That resulted in a conference report with 961 provisions that you have there on the desk. One point I just want to make is it's big. There's some reasons for that I'll talk about in just a second, but this is also an opportunity for our members to legislate. We had 248 amendments that were offered in the committee and 181 amendments that you folks saw fit to make an order during the floor consideration of this bill. It's an opportunity for members to put their stamp on it. The bill authorizes $619 billion for national defense. This is $3.2 billion above what the president has requested. And what that $3.2 billion goes for is a pay raise for our troops and to stop the cuts in strength that are otherwise going to be implemented. And I just mentioned, Mr. Chairman, I think having a pay raise for the full statutory amount that the law says they're entitled to is important for the dollars. It's even more important for the message it sends to the people who serve us. There are also 5 major reform packages in this bill, and that's part of the reason it's so big. For example, there is a complete rewrite of the Uniform Code of Military Justice for the first time in 30 years. Working with the Pentagon, et cetera. This is a culmination of a long, determined effort. There's also military health care reform that our Personnel Subcommittee, Dr. Joe Heck and Susan Davis, have led that streamlines the TRICARE benefit, helps focus on military medical readiness. We've got reforms of the Defense Commissary System, and we've got acquisition reform that we began last year, continuing this year, we'll pursue further. And we've got significant changes to the organization and structure of the Pentagon related to the 1986 Goldwater-Nichols Act, which we can talk about more detail if you like. We support the folks who are in the fight every day against terrorists in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. Missile defense, including Israeli missile defense, is fully funded. So I know that members may have questions, Mr. Chairman, but I respectfully request this committee issue an appropriate rule so that this conference report may be considered this week, hopefully, on the House floor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, your collegiality, your professional nature, and perhaps most of all your friendship to Mr. Thornberry, I think has made this a better bill. And I want to, on behalf of this committee, I want to thank you for taking time not only to be here, but to defend your product. The gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to concur with Chairman Thornberry. I think this has been an extraordinary, as always, collaborative process, not just between he and I, but all of the members of the committee and all the members of the House. A lot of members who don't serve on the committee have interests and aspects of this bill. We've listened to them and worked with them, and I think helped make this a better product. And I'll even say nice things about the Senate. We worked well with them, Mr. Reed, Mr. McCain, and I think came up with a very good product. And as the chairman indicates, this is an important time. We face many national security challenges on a wide range of fronts. Most national security experts say this is the most complex national security situation that we have been in quite some time. We have certainly the concerns that continue in the Middle East from terrorism, from North Korea, from Iran, Russia, China, lots of things that we have to keep our eye on, and this bill helps support the men and women who are most directly charged with doing that. I think it is an excellent product, and I think the chairman has done a pretty decent job of summarizing it. I guess the only further thing I would note is to echo Ms. Slaughter's comments. There were some provisions in the bill that had nothing to do with what we were doing on defense. We understand that as one of the few products that passes every year, people tend to want to do that, and I think we did a good job of taking that stuff out and making sure that this bill was first and foremost focused on national security and providing for and protecting the men and women who fight to protect our national security. So I thank him for that, and with that I yield back and look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. It is my hope that next year, whenever President-elect Trump makes a determination and the United States Senate approves whoever is the new head of the Defense Department and all of the branches, that you both will work together as you have here today. I think it's in the best interest of the Pentagon. I know it's in the best interest of the House of Representatives. But I would just tell you that your ability to be successful, I think, is together. And this committee has tried to make itself available to handle all the things that would be necessary to give you the tools. but I want to thank you for working with us. Quite honestly, the appropriations process and looking at that is not something that we had the expertise to do. And you did that for us. Mr. Chairman, I have come to you a number of times during the year about things. One of them was concerning the number of pilots and a deficiency that we have, and we're having to, I don't want to have to put that number, but a large number, retention bonus that we're paying our pilots. Would you give us just a thumbnail on where we are with deficiencies across our military that are troublesome from a workforce standpoint?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Short answer is it's bad and getting worse. We have, and it's been public, that we have a shortage of at least 700 pilots in the Air Force and a shortage of at least 4,000 maintainers in the Air Force, and it will get worse, even if everything is done to try to stem that tide. Part of the reason is the airlines are hiring. Part of the reason is that people are choosing to leave, and aircraft, they're not getting the flying hours they thought they would get. We have maintenance issues, et cetera. So among the things in this bill are reauthorization of some of the bonus and retention pays, but also to stop the in-strength cuts. If we lose a pilot, say with 5 or 7 years experience, or you cannot recruit somebody new and replace them. It takes time. And so that's part of the reason I say there's a sense of urgency to stem the loss here. And pilots is one example, but there are many other examples throughout the services where we're short of people, and the people we have, we're working harder and harder. And there's a limit to, as extraordinary as they are, there's a limit to how far that can go.
The thing we're proud of is training, equipment, ability, but it all depends on the frailty, so to speak, of a man or a woman and their ability as a human being with their life and with those consequences that come from that. In Dallas, as you know, I'm very close to the SEAL community and the enormous sacrifices that have been made by these people who have served our country. Their life cycle is short because of the demand that's placed on them, but this is true of all people in the military. I'll be going, as you know, I was asked by the Marine Corps to please go around in essence, halfway around the world to say thank you to the members of the Marine Corps, and I will be doing that with several other members week before Christmas. I want you to know you've given me a gift to give them, and that is the certainty that the men and women of the United States Congress, and I believe the House and the Senate and the President, believe that the job that they do is important enough that we need to finalize our work and give that to them and not delay that. And I want to thank you for, both of you, for that gift that I can give with great certainty, and the people who will be with me will also, to the people who protect us. Thank you very much. Mrs. Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions of our colleagues. I want to add to briefly the comments you've made about how we appreciate the great work that they do working together on these issues, and the fact that we want to make sure our military folks have the support that they need. I want to particularly commend the chairman, though, for listening to me as he's listened to you on issues that have been brought to me by constituents, particularly in the area of procurement. And I realize this is an issue he's working on and going to make better. It's one that it's been a problem that's been created over years, like many of the things he's inherited. But I do appreciate the fact that he listens, the staff listens, and they look for ways, they accept and believe what they hear, and are looking for ways to solve the problem. So I am particularly grateful for that. We all know not every chairman takes that attitude, and so I'm grateful to him. And I'm grateful we're at a point where we can give a little certainty to our folks on the front lines about what we're going to be able to do. I'm sorry it's taken this long. I know this is an anomaly, and I hope that this will be an anomaly and that we won't have to face this kind of situation again. But I thank you both for your work. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you very much. With great sincerity, we mean that to both of you and your staff. Yes, thank you. Mrs. Slaughter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate that your responsibility is awesome, and I appreciate the good work that you've done, and thank you for sticking with it. Thank you, and it is good to get it done before next year. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to congratulate and thank both of you. You guys always bring us a work product, with keeping hopefully a half-century plus string alive is something that we should do more of around here. I particularly want to thank you both for preserving the end strength of the military. I think that's the most important thing this particular piece of legislation does, is stop that erosion. And I know you had to bargain hard over OCO, but you made the right choice in that debate. The people are more important than the equipment and the technology, and maintaining that basic level, I think, was extraordinarily important. I thank you for the raise. I think you're very right, Mr. Chairman, when you say it's less about the money than it is, although that certainly matters to anybody, but it's about letting people know they're doing the hard work of defending all the rest of us, that we value what they do and we'll put it first. And I thank you for the reforms. I think this really is much more sweeping than the normal NDAA and some of the reforms you've put in, and everything from health care to procurement to, I mean, all of these bills are significant. This is not a stand-in-place bill. This is really a major reform. I don't take issue with you at all in this, but I'm going to beat up on Congress a little bit at the expense of your committee. This is an authorization bill. It's not an appropriations bill. So we shouldn't kid ourselves that we've taken care of defense. We haven't. I've got a letter sitting on my desk right now from the Secretary of Defense, which I suspect every member of Congress does, that spells out what the consequences of a CR are, particularly one that now looks like it's going to be extended into April. I have the new tanker program that will be maintained at Tinker Air Force Base, KC-46. So I know what this means in terms of them getting ready to receive. They can't start and do a lot of things that they would normally be doing. We don't have any Ohio-class submarines in Oklahoma. We'd like to get a couple, but we're not sure where we'd put them. But I know what it means for that program as well. Program after program after program. And for some of my friends who railed against the omnibus last year, they've effectively supported an extension of the omnibus for another 6 months since the end of last fiscal year. That's what we're doing in the CR that we'll be entertaining next week. And so I would just use the example of your good work as something that the Congress ought to follow, because we can write all the great authorizations in the world, but if we don't appropriate, and I know how well you work with Chairman Frelinghuysen and how well our two committees have worked together over the years, this stuff mostly doesn't happen until we get the CR out of the way. Now, this is indispensable, and it's the framework, and I know, because I said on Defense Approach, how closely Chairman Frelinghuysen has tried to match our appropriations with the authorizations that you've laid out. That's a very important thing. It doesn't always occur around here. But until he's allowed to actually move a bill, whether it's in an omnibus or an individual defense bill across the floor, most of your good work won't be implemented. And that's something we ought to think about. It's too easy for us to punt the ball around here, and that's exactly what we've done. To be crystal clear, I certainly will vote for a CR as opposed to shutting the place down. I think that's the worst solution of all. But, we've allowed ourselves, and we could have finished this. That's what really, really upsets me. Because I know in my area, in the Labor H bill, we were like this. Most of the issues that we have in a lot of these other appropriations bills had been taken care of, because they're usually fights over riders. And the reality is, with an incoming administration, a lot of those fights are, they're moot. They don't matter much anymore. Those decisions will be made. So you really got down to just getting the money matched up to the programs. And the areas that I appropriate, we're going to, if we don't do something by April, we'll miss a chance with no additional money spent to put an additional $2 billion at NIH so we could do a lot of disease research. And that's true in your programs as well. These are really important programs, and the dollars need to get there sooner rather than later so that our men and women in uniform have what they need when they need it, and that there is program continuity. So while I take your good work and enthusiastically supportive of what you've done, I think, again, I had the privilege of sitting on this committee. When I first got there, it always operated extremely well and extremely professionally. You do have a great staff with you, and it's always been bipartisan. You guys have continued that tradition. But until we match up the appropriations with your authorizations, the job is only half done. And pushing it, what I fear most of all is that we'll, having gotten to September and said it's easier to kick the appropriations bill out till after the election. And then we've decided, well, they'll go to March. And now we're being told, well, the Senate's going to take a long time. And it's fair enough. They've got to confirm all these additional people to new cabinet positions. It's not something we didn't know was going to happen. They've got a Supreme Court thing. So now we're going to go to April. You get to April, it's going to be awfully easy to say, well, let's just CR all the way through. And if we do that, we delay the implementation of a lot of the good things that you've done in this authorization bill. It just won't happen. So I just say that I'm going to raise this point again and again in every forum that I can. I know my own leadership's tired of hearing about it, but we get paid to do a job. We get paid to do it in a certain time frame. It ought to get done. And when one part of it, the appropriations part, doesn't get done in concert with the authorization part, then we've undercut a lot of what the good work you've done in authorizing things. Hopefully the example that you and your committee, both of you, have set for how you handle things becomes the standard for how we do things around here across the board, and in both the appropriations and the authorization. And again, that was doable. That was doable this year, certainly in defense. If nothing else, I would have been happy to do a defense authorization bill standalone. I promise you it would have passed. It had tremendous bipartisan support, and that would have been half the appropriated budget right there in a single piece of legislation. We did that, thank goodness, for our veterans. We got their work done and their appropriations bill done, and that's going to move. We could have done that in several chunks, if not the whole thing. So hopefully we'll come back in January with a determination to make sure the authorization and the appropriations process move in concert. Now, the difficult thing for us will be, as appropriators, next year we will get to appropriate twice in a year, unless we do a CR. I'd rather appropriate twice than do a CR. But if we don't do that appropriations bill, we'll be undermining the good work you've brought before this committee and are bringing before the Congress, and that will pass in a bipartisan, strong show of support. So thank you for your work, and I'm going to keep harping at my committee, or our Congress, not my committee. They're ready to go until we do that.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just say, I completely agree with the concerns that Mr. Cole raises. CRs always damage defense, and the longer they go, the more damage they do. That's just the way it works. I'm hopeful that this authorization bill will provide a template for a quick and speedy defense appropriation bill after the first of the year. The only other thing I want to mention, Mr. Chairman, when you go overseas, even with the authorization bill, the pay raise and the in-strength help is effective. So that part does not require an appropriation bill, but the gentleman from Oklahoma is exactly right. To make all of most of this take effect, it requires the appropriation bill be signed.
And I look forward to working with you. I don't think we ought to wait around, particularly on the defense angle. We can move that, and waiting all the way to April or whatever, where the temptation is going to be to go to August, I think is a risk we should not run, particularly in this area. But the problems my friend pointed out in his remarks, again, I just remind everybody, are problems in every single agency, because all the difficulties this causes men and women in uniform in our defense establishment, the same things are caused in every other agency of government. The only one that will escape it is the veterans Administration and military construction, because their appropriations bill is safely across the line in time, and we ought to be doing that for every single bill. But I thank my friends for their really, really excellent work. And again, I want to end on a positive. Thank you for defending the end strength of the force. It's the most important single thing, and you've stopped the bleeding, and next year maybe we can start restoring the military where I know both of you want it to be. With that, Mr. Chairman, yield back.
Thank you very much. Would the gentleman allow me to engage both of you just for a second? Just in a discussion, is it impossible for us to come to an agreement with the current administration? Have we decided not to negotiate? Does anybody, I don't know this answer. And I certainly don't want to beat it up, but I'm interested in the answer.
I mean, my understanding is that your leadership in the House and Senate conferred with the president-elect, and they decided that they'd rather have a CR, and then that was what was decided.
And not move this portion now.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know the conversations. My impression is the same as Adam's. The only thing I would say is I think or at least my impression is that the current administration will not allow a defense appropriation bill to be signed into law without the other appropriation bills.
That's what I had heard, but I don't want to,
And so that's
knows?
part of the issue.
it's kind of one of these. We're going to kind of, and I'm not trying to pitch you guys against each other. That's the last thing I want to do, but I think that's a good point. Mr. Chairman, do you have any intel on that?
I wouldn't say I agree with my two colleagues, and I regret that we didn't at least get this. I mean, I'm a big believer in taking what you can get when you can get it, and not holding out, and it's my understanding that was the administration position as well. But I also add, honestly, in defense of the administration, in my view, this could have been done. We were pretty close in most of the subcommittees, particularly, and we will all view this in different ways given our partisan perspective.
Yeah.
But a lot of the knotty issues were settled by the election. They just were, because they could be let go, and we could focus on the money and matching the money with the authorizations in program after program. And I regret that we did not seize the opportunity to do it. I hope that we will next year, and I hope we don't wait around till April. There's no reason in defense for us to wait around until April. You guys have done the hard work on policy. Rodney Frelinghuysen and Peter Veslowski have done the hard work on the appropriation side. We ought to be able to marry this stuff up a lot earlier than April, in my view. Yield back.
Well, if I had been asked, I would have said I believe it is true that the administration did not want to do that, but I think it was also true, but we didn't have an NDAA really accomplished. So it became a difficult wicket, but we've got to focus on it. And I think Chairman Cole's viewpoint, as well as both of yours, we need to find a way to get this done now. Thank you very much. Mr. McGovern.
I think I'm going to be handling this bill for the Democrats tomorrow, so I will save my riveting commentary until tomorrow on the House floor. But I want to thank both gentlemen for their great work and appreciate it, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. As we know, you also have insights into your ideas about the United States military, so I do think they're insightful, and I do appreciate that very much, and appreciate the gentleman. Gentleman from Georgia does not seek time. The gentleman from Louisville, Texas, Dr. Michael Burgess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, if I could engage, looking at the PDF that I have of that on my iPad, Section 1002, which deals with the production of auditable financial statements, looks like that survived. The Senate may have lengthened the time from 30 to 90 days. I'm okay with that, so I'm very pleased that with all of the machinations back and forth, that little provision did stay in. I think it's an important concept that needs to be accomplished, and certainly look forward to that occurring in a new administration. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Gentleman from Colorado. Gentleman yields back his time. Thank you very much. The gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Stivers.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman,
Chairman.
you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the chairman and ranking member for their hard work on this bill and getting it done. And I know there were a lot of compromises that had to be made with the Senate to get some things done, but it's a great bill. It'll help protect our nation, and I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Byrne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
As a member of the committee, I want to thank both of you. I know how much hard work you and your staff put into this, and I greatly appreciate it. And I certainly intend to support this bill. One disappointing feature on it, however, is that we authorized in the House version an extra $18 billion for acquisitions that's not in this bill. And I understand certain things have to be compromised. Picking up on Mr. Cole's point, if we don't have the appropriations bill, it's kind of a moot point because they can't move forward with acquisitions without the appropriations bill anyway. So, as you probably know, there's a big effort to try to get a supplemental appropriation for that and some other things as quickly as possible in the new administration. Obviously, it would be ideal if we could authorize those extra projects. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask you if you would be supportive of providing that authorization up to the level that we already have in the bill that originally passed the House.
Well, I don't want to say a particular level, but absolutely I support, as quickly as possible, some sort of supplemental so that we can take up those items and approve those items that have had to fall out of this bill. And there have been a number of them. I know members of this committee have asked not only for the additional LCS, but for Blackhawks, a variety of things that necessarily have had, to, in order to get us to this point now, have had to fall out. I think it is essential that to rebuild the military, we have to have more capability. That includes ships, that includes planes, it includes helicopters. I agree with Mr. Cole, people is number one, and that's why we prioritized people with the limited additional resources we have. But I certainly support a supplemental that can give us a head start on that rebuilding effort, which is so important.
Well, I really appreciate that. One of the things that concerns me, I know Mr. Cole is well aware of this, and you are as well, that by delaying some of these acquisitions, the cost is going to go up, which only means that we pay more for what we're going to get than we would be if we did it now. And I understand the political ramifications, et cetera. It's not going to mean any more profit in the pocket of the people who are producing these things. It just means the cost goes up for the taxpayers, and I regret that. But the quicker we get it done, the less that cost goes up. So that puts real pressure on us, I do believe, Mr. Chairman, to get this done as quickly as we possibly can. And I know you are committed to that. Very, very important. I do note, as a fellow admirer of Winston Churchill, that action this day was actually a label he put on a box that contained the papers where he would give his actual commands during the war. And because Prime Minister Churchill was a night person, he frequently conducted his morning business in bed. And that box that said "Action this day" with all those pieces of paper in it with his orders in it would actually be brought to his bed, and he would sign those orders from bed. And nonetheless, by signing each of those action items, action this day, he was able to not only carry out the war, but carry it out successfully. I wish you the same luck that he had in World War II, but he had more than luck. He had incredible ability, and I believe the people on our committee and on the staff are just as committed, and we'll see the victory getting this last part of what we try to get done. So I thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman from Washington, Mr. Newhouse. Gentleman does not seek time. Thank you. We appreciate it. And as Mrs. Fox, I believe, appropriately noted, and thank you to your staff. We appreciate not only their professional abilities, but their desire to perform on behalf of the team. Thank you very much. Is there any other member that would seek to provide testimony? Seeing none, this now closes the conference report to accompany S2948 National Defense Authorization Act, fiscal 2017. Chairman now be in receipt of a motion from the gentlewoman from Grandfather Community, North Carolina, the gentlewoman, Mrs. Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee grant a rule providing for consideration of the conference report to accompany S-2943, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2017. The rule waives all points of order against the conference report and against its consideration. The rule provides the conference report shall be considered as read. Finally, the rule provides that the previous question shall be considered as ordered without intervention of any motion except 1 hour debate and 1 motion to recommit, if applicable.
You've now heard the motion from the gentlewoman from Grandfather Community, North Carolina. Is there amendment or discussion to that? Seeing none, the vote will now be on the motion from the gentlewoman. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Accordingly, Mr. Byrne, the gentleman from Alabama, will be handling this for Republicans, and Mr. McGovern will be handling this for Democrats. From time to time, our family here gets a chance to celebrate people who come and go, who have opportunities and enhance their career, and who spend time on the Rules Committee, and we value what they do. In this case, Chairman Stivers is recognized to make an announcement. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And today's a sad day for me, but an exciting day for Justin. Justin Barnes, who has been with me for 6.5 years and who's been the staff director on the subcommittee on the House Rules, is going to be leaving to join Governor Kasich. He's moving back to Columbus, Ohio, and going to be the Assistant Policy Director and Federal Liaison for the state of Ohio. So we'll all maybe see him when he's up here for the state of Ohio. But I wanted to make sure I said thank you to him for his service and that we all got a chance to recognize his contribution to this committee and everything that we do. You know, we had a couple of hearings in our subcommittee, and Justin has done an incredible job, and we're just excited for the next step in his career. Even though it's a sad day for me, it really is an exciting day for him, and I'm excited to watch him continue to blossom and flourish and grow as an incredible professional. So I wanted to make sure we all gave a big round of applause to Justin. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Justin. Congratulations on behalf of your home team family here, and best of luck as you not only go to work with Governor Kasich, but I hope you'll wish him the very best from some of his former colleagues.
May
Okay.
I just-
Yes, ma'am, gentlemen.
We would also like to wish Justin the very best. He's been an extraordinary member here, and we're glad he's going to be coming back to Washington. We can keep up with him. Good luck, Justin.
Great, great. Does any other member want to jump on this thing? Because I really appreciate that other, you know, we value on both sides of this aisle. I mean, the most important job up here, I learned, you know, Rob Woodall's mom and dad were up here. They were? Yes, Rob's. And so I walked by here the other day, and there's this woman sitting there talking to Rob, and he had full attention. Oh, yeah. So, you know, I told her the person that has the toughest job up here is the person that gets his hair cut and makes him smile and look good. But, so I hope you don't lose anybody anytime soon, or you're going to be in trouble.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My parents have seen the way the four minority members take me out to the woodshed on the House floor on a regular basis, so they didn't want to come down here and see the meeting in person. I yield back.
It would have been nice if you brought them by so we could all tell them what we think of you.
Chairman Cole?
I just, in the spirit of the moment, I see our good friend Don back there, and I thought you might mention, you know, you can go, you can serve, go, and you can come back.
Yeah.
So, Justin, you are always welcome back.
We're happy for that.
You know, I would say, Rob, be careful, because I once gave my mom the ability to get even with me in front of Louise, and my mom and Louise took full advantage of it. I thought Louise would help me a little bit, but, you know, sure you did. I appreciate the help there, Louise. Okay, listen, this committee has admirably performed itself, and I appreciate it. We're going to have more work next week. You and I both know that. And it is. And while I don't know exactly the substance of that performance, we are counting on that. So I just want us to be aware that our continued strength of working with each other and resolve towards marching to this with full opportunity for anybody to offer dissent or their ideas will be done. But I want to thank us for the hard work, and I really appreciate, as always, and I think you noticed this, notwithstanding we have a couple of members who couldn't be here today, we're doing our job. And when I look up, your side is here, my side is here. We're asking the tough questions. We're expecting answers. And I really respect and appreciate that more than what you know, and that this is part of the process, and we appreciate it a lot. So, okay, we're done for the day. Thank you.